Most, others is 40, and yes is 16%. Should trans women, this is what really shocked me, should trans women be allowed to compete in women's sports? And almost 50% seem to think yes. So far I have about 200 responses. I'm going to aim for 500. From my 200 responses, this is what I've got. So I thought all the more reason to cover this topic. Varsha and Vidula, come. So it was just, I just posted it. I'm yet to do the demographical analysis. I have all, like, including the background, what they're studying and what they've studied and all that. I'm yet to, but I want to finish the whole thing and then look at age-wise and sex-wise and all that. For now, I just did the answers. I haven't done a proper statistical analysis of it. So, yeah. So, the ones who came in last, you all can just introduce yourselves. Srinidhi, Varsha and Vidula. Everybody introduced and said why they're here.
So, I'm Varsha. I'm studying in Yellow Train. I'm 11th grade. And I'm just here to just get to know an overall view about, what people from different age groups think about, like, different genders today. And how, I also want to see how it's impacting, people of our age, because I see a lot of people, not people close to me, but in general, a lot of people very confused about, what really they think they are and how much they're being influenced by media or people around them. So just here to get a more wider and wide perspective.
Yeah. So, sorry.
So, I'm Vidula. I'm a student in Yellow Train. I'm also in 11th grade. I came to this talk because my ICQ topic, which is a project that we do in our AF level and A2 level, is related to this topic. My question is the effect of patriarchy on crime rate. It's still very raw. I still have to work with it a lot. So I thought it would do me some good to know a little bit more about this topic because I'm not as well versed with it as I would like to be. So it's just something that I want to know a little more about.
I am Srinidhi. I am a good educator, a good set of educator. I worked with the Women High School in Watson and hoping to continue and grow as an educator. I'm just curious here to know because one topic that has, so many sites have been spoken about it. I really want to get more clarity. We should be ready because the community has lots of questions around this.
She works specifically also in areas of sex education and yeah. Abhi, only one left. She's my daughter.
Yeah. I am her daughter and we've had a lot of conversations on all the topics that Amma researches about. So previously the last thing she has done extensively is the silent hijack, which is about screen time and its effects. And I think talking and hearing about all the different perspectives and all the research and how it affects the people around us and our brain, I think it really gives me perspective. And I like having these conversations and understanding more in depth about what we research.
Thanks, Abhi. Okay, we'll start. Okay, I think there's a good mix of, there are children, there are parents, there are educators, there are counselors. I'm very happy that, because I can hear a lot of different perspectives when we present something. So the first thing that I'm going to, talk about, like I did in the video, right?
I was just going to say my aunt has introduced.
Oh, sorry, Auntie. Yeah, please.
I'm Prabha Tuteji. I'm visiting my nation. I live in California. I hear a lot of the stuff. I don't have kids, but my sister has grandkids. So they all talk about it. And then sometimes I would say the same lecture my grandniece gave all of us. She started at the very bottom rung because she said she had to bring people like me up to power. Because she knows sometimes she chops us off.
Uh,
That's how it can happen.
how old is she then?
She's 21, graduating from USC
Okay.
this summer.
Yeah.
But there's so much of it going on.
Yeah.
It's like at every step you walk, there's something happening.
Yeah.
So I called one of the kids and said, "What is this?" Sometimes they explain and sometimes they say, "Mama, please don't try." Because you have too many questions and you don't want to go into it. Some of them is gory, she said.
Yes, I think I missed out them also, Subhashini and.
Hi, I'm Subhashini. I'm a parent. I came here because of your last question. Women's spaces being occupied by trans women. It's kind of biological women are entirely different, made up of different harmony biologically, and in sports and in spaces where women's spaces, I'm somehow not feeling that okay with that. And also, as a parent, I should be equipped with answering questions. My daughter's 12, so probably it's better for me to be equipped with the answers, or I can educate her more than the media and whatever that she hears from.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, like, actually, never in a million years I would have thought that I would be advocating for sex differences, because I remember myself as, hey, hi, Sindhu. I didn't even see you walking.
Hi everyone, my name is Sindhu. I'm Menaka's colleague and an educator as well. I've been a part of her previous session about silent hijack. And this is again another topic that intrigues me because I have my own perspective on it. But I'd like to hear from her research and from other enthusiasts like you all. And I'd like to be well informed about it, especially because of my role as an educator and a parent myself.
Amma.
I think I might be the last one.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. We started because the room was not full, but yeah, now it's full. Yeah, it's okay, please.
No, I'm glad that you started on time. Like
Yeah.
I came late because I had a session that I had to complete. And I'm Sridevi Bhaskaran. I'm working as a school counselor. And why I'm attending this session is because of my friend Shyamada. She shared this.
Yeah, okay.
And this topic piqued my interest to see. I have been working on different topics. This is something that I have never worked on before. So I'm open here for learning and knowing your perspective, what you think about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. So, as a mother, as a young mother, so like I was saying, as a teenager or as a young woman, I would definitely thought, we're all the same, and that typical rebel attitude. But when I had my own children, and I was a typical tomboy growing up, my mom will vouch for that. I was called a tomboy in both the schools that I studied, and I was always, on trees. And when I had my daughter, I was very particular that I would get her only gender-neutral toys. And I mean, these terminologies were not there then, okay? But I bought her, those drill kits and all those kind of things typically. And she also had dolls and stuff, and she loved that stuff. So I was quite, okay. So, and then I had my son, and he had everything. Like, he had the trucks, he had the dolls, he had everything around. But he was very typically, of course, this is an anecdotal example, and I know it's not very scientific to quote this, but my journey into this, started then. When I saw that, the environment was the same, but I saw typical preferences in these two children. And then as a teacher, I started noticing this in the behaviors, in the classrooms and everywhere. And I don't know if Sindhu was there then, but about 5-6 years back, for one of our sanghas in school, which is typically a very solemn, you sit with a candle, or, we sit with a flower and then we discuss something. I did a sangha called the War on Boys. So, where I had like these pistols and these gory diagrams drawn by my little boys in my classrooms, and the heads cut off and blood and all that, and everybody was like, "Are you sure this is a sangha?" Because it doesn't look like one. But the point was to bring to the consciousness that this was post a class I attended. I didn't have class that day, so I just happened to be sitting in a classroom and watching a session. So the teacher, it was high school, and the teacher had given some prompts to the class, and the children were writing. It was English. The children were writing about it, and the end of it, when the teacher asked the girls, the children, to read it out, it was all very emotional, very dark, very heavy, and I was also listening and I was like really impressed. And the teacher was also very like moved. And she said, so how come all of you have written like this? And one kid just said, that's because that's the only thing you appreciate. Meaning, it was not meaning most of us are women, as educators, and we have very few male educators, right? And we tend to gravitate towards these kind of things. And the boys typically don't write very typically those heavy things, right? And I felt like there was no level playing ground. And when I took this to the Sangha, one of the other teachers mentioned that just the previous week in that class where every time a prompt was given, the girls used to write like 3 pages of hope and the boys would write half a page. And one day she took Genghis Khan and the boys wrote 3 pages and the girls wrote half a page. And there was a clear difference, right? And what we're trying to do today is to try and erase this, and it's doing nobody any good, right? And also the thing is, the behavior of girls has become the golden standard in classrooms. If a child is quiet, sitting, and therefore it is very unfair to the boys because you're not giving them a level playing ground, right? When we are marking them for behavior, right? And obviously the boys would be doing poorer than the girls on an average, I'm saying, right? I mean, I would have probably done badly in behavior when I was a kid, but I'm not the average girl. So I was a boyish girl. But so, I mean, it started there for me, and then I started really getting into this to see. And everywhere there were arguments about, like, I used to come for workout, and there was this woman who said, today I was working out with my husband and he did more push-ups than me, and I'm like, isn't that obvious? And she was like, how can you say that being a doctor? And I'm like, yeah, we are biologically so different. And today we're talking about gender-neutral bathrooms, we're talking about trans women in women's sport and things like that. And I'm very surprised that 50% of the people who have answered think that trans women should compete with women in women's sport. Right? How many of you here, I mean, now that I've told you, I don't know what your stance would be, but I was very surprised because I thought that would be one question. So, yeah. So we'll start with a very basic question. Like you said, we don't know these terms. They say there are so many sexes, there are so many genders. Gender is non-binary, sex is non-binary. So what is biological sex? Is biological sex, we'll start with, debunking myths. That's how I'm going to do it. So,
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just please explain what is binary with regards to sex.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
The word
So,
binary, yeah.
Yeah, binary means two. Yeah. So, biological sex is a spectrum, is the myth which I'm going to debunk for you, right? So, what is biological sex? Biological sex is not determined by your chromosomes. Your chromosomes or your hormones or your behavior or even your genitalia or your reproductive organs. But biological sex depends upon what are the gametes you produce, the reproductive gametes that you produce. And there are 2 types of reproductive gametes, which are the sperms, which are the smaller ones, produced by the males, and the ovum, the eggs, which are produced by the females. So, and there are no intermediate gametes. There are only 2 types of gametes. You either produce this or you produce that, or you don't produce either. That is also possible, but that does not mean that there is an intermediate sex. Okay, so there are 2 sexes. Yes?
What about the third gender?
Yeah, so we'll be coming to it a little bit in the future. So the third gender again is a myth.
What we see is
Yeah, so they're not a third gender. They have a chromosomal anomaly, which we'll go into next. Okay, so this is that. Have I defined it well for you? Do you understand? So when you say sex, it depends upon what is your sex. It means what is the cell you're producing in your body. What is the gamete that your body is producing? That determines your sex. Then what is gender, right? Gender is very much related to sex, and gender is also binary. Okay, and gender is determined by your biological makeup. Okay, so gender identity is what you feel. Do you feel feminine or masculine, right? So how feminine or how masculine you feel will be your gender identity, and your gender expression would be dictated by societal norms. For example, if the gender expression typically of males here is short hair, so depending on what clothes you wear, how your hairstyle is, and what are your mannerisms, these are the things that are determined, and those will be your gender expression. Clear? Any doubts here? No. So anybody wants to contribute or ask anything here?
Can you come again about gender identity and gender expression?
So gender identity is 90% most of the time very similar to your biological sex. Okay, so what happens is so now we'll come to the chromosomes, right? We know that a sperm can be either X or a Y, and the eggs are a double X. And depending upon whether it's a XX or a XY, it is a male or a female, right? So what happens is when it is a male, when it's an X and a Y, around 7 weeks, this male fetus starts producing testosterone, which is what masculinizes the brain, right? So depending upon how much testosterone you're producing, you will be a very masculine male or a regular male or a slightly effeminate male, right? And the more effeminate you are, the more chances that you might be gay or a homosexual. So it is actually very biological. Unlike what most people thought, till now, it was thought that homosexuality was a choice, that it can change, that people can be converted out of it. But that's not true. The fact is, what they found, there was this research that was done by this man called Ray Blanchard. He's a sexologist and a psychiatrist who researched and found that there were clear differences in the brains of homosexual males and males who were straight. And how did he find this? Because at the time when there was HIV, they had a lot of, they could do an autopsy on a lot of people who died of HIV, and many of them were homosexual males, right? And therefore, when they saw it, and they saw certain differences in, so a homosexual male brain was very much similar to a straight female brain, and very different from a straight man. So which means actually they were right all along. They've been telling us that it is very innate for us, this is how we feel, right? So, but what has happened is, and then there was this conversion therapy. This is what I spoke about in the last video. Those of you who didn't see it, I'll explain that there used to be this conversion therapy because they thought that they could change them, right? But once this was established, then we know that it is harmful, it is not effective, and it has been discredited, the conversion therapy. So what Ray Blanchard came up with is called the fraternal birth order effect, which means he also found that in a large percentage of these homosexual males, they were boys who were born as a third or fourth or fifth boy to the mother. So how did this happen? Because every time you conceive a male fetus, the mother's, and there are antigens that are produced by the Y chromosome, which the mother's system will form antibodies to. So the more number of boys that you keep having, the more antibodies you have to the male fetus. And therefore, the masculinization of that brain doesn't happen as much as it would have for the first one. Am I clear? If anyone didn't understand, I can explain it for you again. So they found that the more further down in the order, not to say that every fourth born boy or fifth born boy is going to be, or not to say that a firstborn can never be, but this was one of the big factors that was found. Very high percentage had this correlation that, it is related to. So this was very well established, okay. So that brings us to the problem today. So this is where it was, then they got the gay rights, and then everything was okay. Now we have something called gender fluidity, right? Which is you can be anything. you can be this one day, you can be that one day, you can be anything in between, you can be nothing, right? Which is the opposite, and it contradicts this thing that it is innate. So they say that if you say that gender is immutable and it is innate and sexuality is, is inborn, then you're a bigot, you're oppressive, right? So now, which is their stance? Because if then conversion therapy, if that is the case, then conversion therapy should work. So this is my basic problem with, there's no logic in what is being propagated. And who's to ask these questions? Because the minute you ask questions, you're just cancelled. Right? So most of the arguments, and even to, talk about gender is next we can move on to, am I clear with this? I'm just going like randomly as the questions are coming in, I'm just moving on with that. Yes.
So, one argument is that it is innate, right? And then you say that gender fluidity contradicts the innate.
Yeah.
So my question is, so when we have gender expression, which is a function of societal norms, so you have people who are probably not very male in their society, but then when they go to societies where the norm is more aggressive and more, so then does that influence? Because it's a hierarchy, right? When they feel they are less male than the others.
So if you say there's a country or a planet where short hair, women shave their heads and men grow their hair long, then that would be the gender expression there. So if you're a female, you would be expressing yourself like that. And if you didn't feel so much female, then you would probably want to express yourself the other way around. Did I answer your question?
The whole argument right now against gender and sexes. So I was there in my own sex ed training classes, right? So which was again developed by a lot of gynecologists and psychologists and lawyers and counselors. So they gave me the gender. So sex is biological sex, what you're born with, like either a penis or a vulva, whatever. The gender they say is a the word gender itself is defined as whatever we understand as a society is feminine or female or masculine.
Yes.
Or this is how you should behave. What you call in gender expression is the
the
definition given to gender itself.
Okay, so I'll tell you about this word gender.
I'm sorry to drag this.
Yeah.
It would help if you could crisply define gender identity and gender expression.
Okay, I will just, yeah, sure. I'm going to just read it out so that, there is no, from the expert. This is Dr. Deborah So. She is a sexologist and a neuroscientist, okay? So I'm going to, so that I can be very, very clear. So, sex is therefore binary and it is not a spectrum, okay? By contrast, gender identity is how we feel in relation to our sex, regarding whether we feel masculine or feminine. That's what I said, but I didn't frame my sentence so clearly, I guess. Gender expression is the external manifestation of our gender identity, or how we express our gender through our appearances. Like I said, clothing, hairstyle, how we behave, our mannerisms, typical mannerisms in certain places. It changes from one place to the other, how a woman is expected to behave, right? I mean, it'll be kind of similar, or a man. So, is that okay? Yeah. So, yeah.
So, when someone thinks that they can convert back from being homosexual to being straight, when you say therapy, does it mean that they use the placebo effect, that they tell them that, hey, you're actually straight and you're thinking that you're gay, so you can just become straight again? How does it work?
Yeah, it's more like that. It's more counseling and therapy and that kind of thing.
So it's just mindset and that they harbor.
That's what they were trying to do. So the difference is that these people are actually, when you say you're homosexual, what is it actually? That you're attracted to someone of the same sex.
Correct.
It's your attraction, your sexuality.
Yeah.
That is where the difference is. So you could be a biological male or a biological woman, and if you're not attracted to someone of the opposite sex, then you're homosexual. And that is innate, because attraction is something you're feeling. But what we are seeing today is a lot of confusion, and therefore thinking that, or because it's become quite fancy, it's become it's cool to be belong to the spectrum or belong to the non-binary or to the queer community. So the more number of celebrities that are coming out as non-binary, because it's cool.
Right. So if they convert it back, then what does it mean? Does it mean
You
that
cannot,
it was there?
if they converted back, actually, really, genuinely, if they were able to convert back, then maybe it was not even homosexuality to start with.
Could it be phases?
Huh?
I mean, like you said, because of what people, you are bombarded with so much information now.
Exactly.
So through conditioning, like what you
Yes.
see, what you hear, what
That's
you
what
read,
I'm
so
saying.
Could you be confused?
Yes. So again, what we are seeing today is very interesting. I'll just finish this. Just remember that. I'll come to that because I was at the point of gender. I was trying to define what. So gender was actually a term which was introduced by this doctor called John Money, who was the biggest reason why this whole gender reassignment thing started in 1955. Okay, John Hopkins University, which was the reassignment center that was closed down now recently. Okay, what he did was he introduced this term gender, and he started saying that it's only societal construct and you can change. And he experimented on a lot of children. Yes. The most famous case being that of David Reimer. David Reimer was born in 1965 in Canada. He was one of the twins. And when they tried to do circumcision surgery on that child, they very badly injured he almost lost his penis. And because of the botched up operation, he decided, because he was already a proponent of this theory, now he had a lab rat, right, too. So he used this child. He told the parents, let's do a reassignment surgery on this child and let us bring him up as a girl. So since the time he was a very little child, he was told that you're a girl. He was dressed up like a girl. He was made to, And when he was an adolescent, he started feeling, he was going through a lot of depression and anxiety. And he felt there was something amiss, right? And then the parents revealed to him that this is what happened to you. And he decided to go back to living as a boy. But by then, there was so much irreversible damage that was done to him, and this whole depression that he went through and all that, he took his life. When he was 38, he committed suicide. Okay, like that, and after which only this story came out of how many other children that this Dr. John Money had done this to. As an experiment. Because he totally believed that this is possible. Right? And then when you go back and ask, when they went back and interviewed, I think the twin brother or the friends or something, they found that he was typically, like a clumsy girl. He was dressed in a frock, but he was behaving like a typical boy all through. So imagine the confusion for that child, right? So this answers that thing of gender, somebody said. So actually this was a term that was introduced much later. And like you said, now you can't say sex anymore. You're supposed to say sex assigned at birth, assigned by the doctor.
Really?
Like the doctors don't know what they're doing, right? Yeah.
I think your question is, you're thinking about cases where people who claim they were gay and then later on seduced people.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So what I work,
Please.
I know about that I'm having happened. So I have a friend who's gay. So it's only anecdotal.
Yeah, sure.
So he said that this can have, most likely the person is bisexual.
Bisexual,
But more,
exactly.
But more leaning towards homosexuality. But under
But they
social
can-
pressure,
Yeah.
the person was able to revert back to heterosexual
Yeah.
lifestyle, but they were on close to being bisexual. So
Yeah.
then it's possible.
Yeah, so that depends on how masculinized the bride. It's, how much more on that side or nearer to the center you are. Yeah.
Or they were just experimenting because they were confused.
That's what I told her too.
Like
If it was
when I was growing up,
Exactly.
it was very common for kids,
Exactly.
young kids, to idolize the head girl
Yes.
or something like that. In today's world, people would put all
Exactly.
ideas into the younger children's
This-
heads to wonder if they're actually physically attracted to that.
Very, very true. This is an example that I always use when I'm explaining this to someone, that when we were in school, there were girls who were attracted to one of the teachers or one of the seniors, and it was a very brief phase because it was all girls school, and there was a very brief phase, like that 6 months or a year, and then they go back to being themselves, and now they're married, they have kids, and they're fine with their sex and gender and whatever, right? But today, when that happens, not only are you thinking you're a homosexual, much worse, you think you're a boy stuck in a girl's body, which is why you're attracted to a girl. That's where the problem comes. Especially if you've been indoctrinated with certain religious things where they say that homosexuality is such a sin, then subconsciously you do not want to identify with that. You would rather, even the parents, they'd rather have a trans child than a homosexual child. So it could be this or this. It could be just a passing phase. It could be that you're actually a homosexual, or it could be that, and in most cases it's the first one, in a very small percentage it's the second one, and almost never, like extremely tiny percentage where it's the third one. But the push is towards the third, which is where the problem is, and which is why we're talking about this today. Trans. Because if you identify as a homosexual, you're not going to go and damage your body. You're not going to go and make any changes. You're still identifying as your biological sex. So you're not going to go and take puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones or going to do any kind of a surgery. Whereas, if you now think that I am a boy stuck in a girl's body, which is why I am attracted to another girl, then I'm sure madam will agree that in California it's like the hot seat of all this, it's like everything possible is happening there. And what happens is the school keeps this a secret from the parents. The parents are not told. The child has a different identity in school, has a different name in school and a different name at home. So they demonize the parents, literally. Yeah.
Sometimes these kids bring a set of clothes in their school bag. They come to school and they change.
Exactly.
And in the evening, before mom comes, they change back. So sometimes the parents are totally...
Yeah, they just kept out of it. And imagine who cares more about the child than the parent, right?
So I've had an instance where one of my friends' school called to counsel her and asked her to accept their daughter's preference to be a boy.
Yeah. This is exactly what is happening, which is why now only for the past 1 year people have started talking against it, which is also one of the reasons why I thought, okay, fine, now people know a little bit of the other side and it's okay to speak, because it is quite scary. The minute you say anything, they assume that you're against. Yeah.
So, the way you define biological sex, it's a categorical definition. If sperm, then male. So, people who subscribe to the view that sex is a spectrum, what is the definition that they subscribe to?
They don't have a definition. You can be anything in between. You can be, what do you call it? You can be a rocket, you can be an alien, you can be a worm. And you have to call them that by their pronouns.
Demigirl and...
all sorts of things, yeah. And I do have that. It's very cumbersome to go through that list of demiboy, demigirl, this, that, so many things. That, yeah.
I have a friend. She's been in Bangalore very well settled. Suddenly I noticed that she shifted off to Canada. I was like wondering, both husband and wife, they're very well career-wise in Bangalore. And suddenly they've shifted there. And then I just asked her about her daughter. She suddenly messages me. My daughter, she just named the girl and said she prefers to be called he or him. That was like
Quite
it hit me. Where it's like...
And Canada is very open like that.
So
Too open.
The daughter has to be, now the pronoun she uses is, she calls him the son, like when she's messaging about him, my son. And suddenly the daughter has become a son and he. The pronoun she uses is he. Looks like she's totally subscribed to that thing about changing the gender. For me, that was the first experience of seeing it firsthand like that.
It was probably a joke, but my mother watched a video about a woman saying that my child prefers to be identified as a cat.
Cat. And the vet wouldn't see. Today somebody posted, Sam posted it on the group, right? Yeah. And she wants to sue the vet because he wouldn't see that child because he identifies as a cat. Can you imagine? And this is real. She's not joking. No, it's a serious video because she did a series of videos of that.
Menaka,
Yes.
maybe you can answer that later for me.
Yeah.
If a parent like that, what should she have done? Should she have accepted that was a him or I mean that's what.
So I'll give you this example, Inga.
I know this girl, my friend of mine, very sensible, practical.
Exactly.
Ignorant.
Which is why we are in this position to keep ourselves informed, because anytime now it's coming to our homes and our schools.
Yes.
And I like to always preemptively address, because so many people who call me on this, do you really think in Coimbatore it's a problem? And I'm like, it's coming. Do you want it to come and hit you and then not know what to do, or do you want to think about it early on? Right? I mean, literally when I started thinking about the silent hijack I was 21, which means long back. And then it wasn't even an issue. We didn't even have Google. We didn't even have social media. We didn't even have, but I saw it coming. Yeah. So
Okay, she just mentioned that lesbian. Okay, I could have understood that, but this change of gender, it just doesn't. I mean, it didn't make sense.
So in most of the states, the children do not even, in the United States, in most of the cities, and they don't even need permission of the parents to get puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. And these people who give these things claim that these are irreversible, it doesn't do any harm. But actually it makes them infertile. And not only does it affect the reproduction and the reproductive organs, it affects their brains. It affects their overall growth. Because sex hormones are not just your sexual organs. Sex hormones have a lot of other, functions. So by the time, I'm sure many of you have heard of this girl. There are lots who have gone through this, but this Chloe became very famous because Jordan Peterson interviewed her. And this girl Chloe and another girl Katie. No, these two girls are in their 20s, very young girls. So they have come out and spoken about it now. When they were just 10 or 11, went through this phase briefly. They went through this phase and they convinced their parents and all this, and this whole support system said, yeah, you are a boy. Put them through the whole range of things, including they had mastectomy, they had hysterectomies, puberty blockers, and these two girls are in their 20s now, and they regret their decision, but they cannot go back. They cannot have a baby, they can never breastfeed.
So what can a parent do? Like for instance, I was talking about my friend. The parents went through 5 years of hell when they initially did not understand and hence could not support. The child chose to cut herself and then the school had to counsel them. And then
The school is counseling the parents. The school should be counseling the child.
There's no support there, right?
That is what I'm saying.
So then after that,
that's why we need the counselors here because sorry Smita.
No, I was just going to say it took them 5 years to finally get to a point where the child has chosen a boy's name, chosen, I don't know for what reason, but that kid's pronouns are they, them, and not he, him, but a boy's name, and they feel like a boy. So like even
they feel like a boy.
Yeah,
I know.
So like I don't even know what my friend and her husband would have done.
So
to
it's very.
this child.
So I think in one of the things I was telling that how, especially in Canada and some places, the practitioner, the healthcare practitioner, should not question a child who comes to them saying, I identify as a trans. They are not supposed to even question it. If they do, if they just question it, they lose their job. Not only that, they can be imprisoned for 5 years. So either you lose your job and you get imprisoned, or you decide to not do this, you step out, and who takes that space? People who will affirm. It's called affirmative therapy, which means you don't question. So which other medical condition, do you know where the doctor will just affirm? If somebody comes and tells me, I have oral cancer, Am I just going to say, okay, you have oral cancer, I'll treat you for it? Or will I check and make sure and investigate and do a biopsy and ensure? And then should I be doing the diagnosis, or should the child or the patient be giving me the diagnosis? Which other medical condition do you just affirm?
The argument is that it's not a medical condition, it is a
Exactly. And they say that the mental disorders should not be, taboo. But when it comes to gender dysphoria, mental disorder becomes a taboo. You cannot call it a mental disorder. Again, a contradiction. They are contradicting themselves. And we are not able to see it because, you need to really because there's just so much coming at you with so much force, right, that you don't know. Like even this person, even in her apology when she wrote to me today on that thing, she was like, Sudanand pointed it out to me, that she was referring to the other side, which means she automatically assumes I'm on the other side. I'm not on the other side. Right?
But, so when you said that when a child can even said I'm a he or a him and I'm a boy, then the parents should not have affirmed immediately. I agree with that. But it could be a very genuine case of...
So I'll come to that. So which is why we need to go through therapeutic approaches. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this gender expression and the significance of it?
Yeah.
You said it's about how feminine or masculine I feel within.
Yeah.
And I feel, is this like a takeoff from there? Like I'm a female sex, okay, but I don't feel feminine enough from within.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you call as the gender expression. Sorry, gender identity.
Yeah.
Gender identity.
Yeah.
How masculine or feminine I feel. From
Yeah,
within.
exactly. Yeah.
And then I think this whole thing is stemming from there, where I don't feel feminine enough. Although I've identified or I've been born with a female body. And hence I'm allowed to change.
So we respect it and then we accept our differences, that not everybody has to be the Barbie girl carrying girl. She can be a tree climbing girl. She doesn't have to be, she can be a girl who has preferences towards things that boys do.
I might wear a shirt and a pant and have short hair because it's comfortable.
Exactly. Ask my mom. I was always in pants and shorts, and all my cousins used to think that I'll get married wearing jeans. They used to make fun of me. They'll be like, even on the Manavare, you'll be sitting in your jeans. But they were so surprised to see that I wanted to be dressed traditionally with my jada and everything for my wedding. So imagine, I keep telling my students this, the children who passed out with that class, I used to tell them, imagine if I was born 30, 40 years later, what would have happened to me? And if I, God forbid, in Canada or one of the metros, I would have just been told that you are a boy. And today, I wouldn't be the person who I am. I would have been a mess. Right? So, yeah.
We should talk more about gender identification and say it's alright for you to be a female with more masculine traits and be absolutely comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And it's very normal and it's completely okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps we should talk more about that so you don't have this confusion of, am I stuck in this body?
Yes, that's exactly what you should be telling. I'll just elaborate on, I just hold on to that thought, but I'll just finish this. I was talking about which other medical condition, right? So there is something called body dysmorphia, right? Body dysphoria is different. Dysmorphia is where you feel like this part of my body it's very neurological, it doesn't belong to me. Or it could be anything. That this hand doesn't belong to me and I need to get rid of it, right? It is a real condition. I'm just giving an example of. Now, if this person goes to a doctor and says, doctor, this hand doesn't belong to me, what do you think the doctor should do? Should he cut it off? Or should he counsel? Should he go through the routine of therapeutic, whatever is the norm, the protocol? Or should he cut off a normal functioning organ? But if a guy were to go in and say, I am a woman stuck in a man's body, they will say, congratulations for having come out. Let's now cut it off. Why is it that we're treating these two things differently? Right? Why? How?
There's also an argument that a lot of people who identify as trans are very comfortable with their bodies and do not want.
Exactly. Most of them are. They just want the society to accept them the way they are. They don't want to go through surgery. The problem today is we are seeing a lot of people going through surgery who actually didn't need it. there are a number of people who benefit from surgery in their adulthood, it would make a life-changing difference for them if they actually have the genuine issue, which we will come to later, which we talk about intersex and other conditions. Yes, but what we are seeing today is something else. So I'll tell you this example of, so this is just an example, this is not actual numbers, okay, I'm just giving you an example. Say we had the incidence of breast cancer, we are talking about incidence of breast, just for an example, I'm not giving you the right numbers, I'm just, say we were getting 50 to 60-year-old women had the highest incidence of breast cancer, and the data for the last 100 years is giving this, okay. Say this is what it has been. And then suddenly for the last 8 to 9 years, we have data that shows that the maximum incidence is in 14-year-old boys, breast cancer. Yeah, I mean, breast tissue is there for men as well, it's just not developed. I'm saying, so in boys. Now I heard that reaction, right? That is the reaction we would give, right? That how can this happen? What has happened to this group that suddenly this has changed? Is it even possible? Is it real? Is it something else? But the exact same thing has happened with trans identification, which is that we had older men coming out as trans. The majority, I think more than 90% or something, was men, older men coming out as trans. And today, we have 12 to 15-year-old girls. The maximum number of trans identification is by 12 to 15-year-old girls. And another difference is that these men who came out, right, typically when you go back and take a history, the families would all agree that we always knew this about him. Even when he was a little boy, he was very different. His preferences were different. He liked to do the typically girly things, or he was effeminate. He was more affectionate than the regular boy. So these are the things that they could always correlate in most cases. But the girls who are coming out today, if you go and ask the same question to their teachers or the parents or the friends, like she was just a typical, she was a regular girl. We don't know what happened. So there is...
Could it be that, again, I'm only talking on the other side because there
Sure, I need that. Yeah, I was actually hoping for somebody to bring in.
When I talk about child sexual abuse for that matter, not so many cases came back then, but now we hear so many cases come out because there's more awareness.
Society has become more open. I have an answer to that. So this is an argument that they will place, that maybe people are coming out because, firstly, that does not justify the difference in the age and the gender. It does not, but I'll come to that anyway. So your answer will be that there was a point when left-handed, people who were left-handed, it was like, not acceptable at all, right? And they were being made to. And then it was proven by one of the studies that it's very normal and there's nothing wrong with them and blah, blah, blah. And after which it took, I forget the exact number, but it's, it took a very long time to show any statistically significant increase in the number of people who were okay being left-handed. It was becoming, but it takes a certain amount of time. What we are seeing in this particular case is unprecedented. It's like nothing that we know can explain this kind of a thing other than the fact that it is a social contagion, where these children are, one common thing is they have a lot of social media influence, and those children who are identifying usually have a gang where one identifies and within the next year there are 3 or 4 children who are also identifying. And they have the support group. When they go online and look, if you today go online and post as a 13 or 14-year-old and ask for help, you will get help from so many sites and people and groups telling you that it changed my life and you need to do it. Don't think twice. Don't tell your parents what to tell your parents, what to tell, like word by word, how to convince people. That's how much brainwashing is happening online.
Psychology, we would say, like, these phase, now the children are undergoing this, we say, identification, gender
Exactly.
identification. So that is why they will be searching their
Exactly.
identity. So now the social norms are giving them different
Exactly.
things. That's why they are coming up. If the social norms are not being so exposed to these kind of things, they will believe what was there.
Exactly.
That's
Very, very true.
Menaka, Google
example. So the other day, my little fellow was Googling. He wanted to say, is it okay for a boy? He wanted to wear a ponytail. He wanted to grow his hair. So is it okay for a boy? The first thing that came out is it okay for a boy to be gay? So he clicked it, but I was looking at it and he pressed it. So the next thing, like you rightly said, if I'm gay, what do I do? Who do I talk to?
Exactly.
Oh my! Then it says, oh, what will my parents say? So it's like an entire rabbit hole with very, very detailed instructions of everything.
Exactly.
What started with the ponytail, ends up being like
You're
my
gay.
first
Yeah.
nightmare.
And then these are the people who are telling gender is a social construct, that this ponytail and thing is socially constructed. And they are the ones who also want to overdo it when you identify as. I don't understand this. Yeah.
What is driving this suddenly so much? Isn't there some kind of lobby, especially in the US, that they want to promote this as a lifestyle? Sometimes, especially in the US, I see in the media as if they want to promote it as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Is it something like that?
We are becoming more and more politically correct and not speaking up. We can keep telling that free speech is, we are becoming more and more free, and it's the opposite. A joke that you could tell 10 years back, you no longer can today because people will look at you and say, oh my God, how can you talk like that?
The TV shows are censored. Right?
Yeah.
Now, the language is censored.
Yeah.
The dialogues are censored.
The movies,
Friends,
the Indian movies we grew up watching and the jokes that were there, we just laughed. Today, if you put it, they'll be like, how the hell can you even talk like this? Right?
What is driving this?
Activism.
Huh?
Activism. Yeah.
What do they gain by doing that?
Oh yeah, that's a big, big question. There are a lot of theories. I still haven't arrived at that. I don't have the answer to that.
Is it the commerce, as she said, or corporates that
That is also there. I think it's a mix of. I think Sudanan might be able to answer this part.
Okay, what I think is, gays have been persecuted for such. I'm just going to stick with gays. They've been persecuted for such a long time on a religious basis. Now, finally, when it's been accepted that it is. It's not social construct, it's biological. So then, it's like I got you moment. The rest of the world. So now, it's such a small movement. I mean, you don't have enough numbers to fight the religious bigots. So you want as many people in your camp as possible. So who's next? You get the trans people. That's still not enough because it's still a minority. So now there is a tendency during your developmental stage of a child that you go through varying emotions which can be confused for whatever Menaka said now. So where we can get any of that. Now, how did this happen? L, G, B, T, Q, I, A.
Plus.
Exactly. So what happens in activism by definition is you're taking something that you want to defend and you're going to find everything that can defend at cost. So now it stops being objective. Because if someone has something to say against the cause, if you have, let's say, some statistic that goes against the cause, you want to dismiss it. You have to take everything in because you want to come to an objective analysis because this falls under the realm of biology. It cannot come under humanity. So now, how the hell did L, G, combine B?
Exactly, they don't go with LGB is different from TQ whatever. They don't come in the same spectrum at all. Because LG and B is your sexual preference. T and Q is completely something else.
But it's not consciously done. It's not consciously done. See, now what happens when you try to align with someone, if you see most cases you align with someone because you have a common enemy. It's an evolutionary impulse that we have because that we spend most of our existence in the Paleolithic era as hunter-gatherers, and that is the time that you couldn't do nuance didn't work. If you're going to rustle in the leaves, and if you stop to see what it was for lunch, if you see something that is coiled up, and you stop to see what was, you're going to get bitten. So that is why when you see a snake, even before you realize it's a snake, your back has already arched back because the amygdala has already processed that is danger. So there are a lot of things that we're not conscious of. So that's what Freud was like. Sigmund Freud. I mean, he came up with the whole thing of subconscious and everything. So there's a lot we don't know about ourselves. I mean, this document, I'm just saying from a day-to-day function. I think I'll just rattle on
No. Yeah.
What may be considered as a very basic question, but if QIA, like you said, doesn't fall in either the gender or the sex part of it, then is there a whole third category or what?
I didn't say that it doesn't. I'm saying that this is vastly different from this. It's not. It doesn't come in the same category.
No, in the sense that gender is two and sex is female and male. Right? Gender is the male gamete
And that is a sex.
So then
Gender is because of your sex and because of what you have. What do you feel like? Are you attracted to a man or are you attracted to a girl? Are you attracted? Are you?
So then
Do you have a natural nurturing tendency?
Trans and queer.
Yeah, no, that I know. But like, what?
So LGB is basically whom I'm attracted to. I'm a girl. I'm attracted to another girl or a boy or both. That is sexual orientation.
Okay.
Whereas trans, queer or intersex and all
Queer
that
is basically they want to be like, I can choose whatever I want whenever I want. You know, I don't want to commit to anything. You know, that's what is queer.
It's not the same as being bisexual.
Bisexual is different. These people can be non-binary or a-binary. What does he call it? Asexual or pansexual.
Pansexual is when they're attracted to both men, women, and even trans.
So these are sexual
Orientation. That's what you're saying.
What is queer? Queer is just you want to be queer. That's it.
It's basically if you don't want to commit to anything else, but you want to say I'm cool and I'm open, you call yourself queer.
The reason why they've clubbed together.
I mean, I don't intend to make a joke of it, but it's come to that, you know, some parts of it has come to that because of their own making, you know. I mean, and this is why I say it's a disservice to the people who actually have a problem, that they're giving everybody an opportunity to laugh because they're saying, you know, my child is a cat and I want to take him to a vet. I mean, what can you do but laugh, right? You can feel sorry for.
On a parallel, right?
Yeah.
So, my teen has anxiety one day, she has ADD one day. It's all because you haven't finished your homework.
Yes.
That's all it is, you don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
Parents aren't allowed to react also now, Menaka. Parents are not allowed to react, right?
To what?
To like now, suppose I
Who says you're not allowed to react?
No, I'm saying, okay, I react. I'm a very reactive guy. I react a lot.
But if you're politically right,
Politically, you're not allowed to, right? So because
By
if
who?
I go to school and say, oh, my mother is saying this, and then the school is the first to sit and support the child, saying, oh my God, and then call the parents and counsel them and say, don't do this to the child. How is that fair for the parent? As a parent, so if tomorrow my child comes and says, okay, you know what, I think I'm a girl. So I'm not supposed to show anything. So how do we react?
Please show, which is why we are doing this.
Just
Because
him and say, get your shit together. You know?
I'm thankful that's still how it works.
Yeah, you know?
here, which is why we need to inform ourselves now, because it's very, and I know children in Coimbatore, I know families in Coimbatore. Like when we had that discussion, we were just a small group in TriStar, and already there were enough people who had in their families and in their circles, and I was surprised because I hadn't taken it to like open. I've only had one-on-one, like with her, with Nisha, and some people we've done one-on-ones, but I've never been in a group where like 6 out of 8 people came and told me later that I know this person, and in their immediate families. So it is here. So
I had actually an incident where a child came to me. Actually, she was very confused. I don't know, it started with like, who am I? I'm really confused. And she actually, when I spoke to her with a couple of things, I figured out she's already done all her surveys and she tagged herself back. No, ma'am, I think I'm like this. Because the internet told me like this. Do you have any assessment to prove that I am like that?
So there was
actually taken back. Like,
yeah. So there was this one study. One of the child psychiatrist. She was a boy was brought to her. He was, I think, 4 or 5 years old, and he said, "I'm a girl." So the parents took him, and she was, I think, one of the sensible ones. So she did the history with the child, and then figured over a few sessions that this child had a sibling who was a girl. And suddenly, and the child, I think the second one had some special needs or something, so the parents were completely with for him, in his head, the only difference is she's a girl and I'm a boy. So my parents liked the girl. And then subconsciously, he wanted to be a girl. That's it. And all you needed was a few sessions of therapy and talking to him, talking to the parents, and then you fixed it. Now we are not even going into it because you're not supposed to ask. Is there some underlying condition? Because that's offensive to ask. So I had drawn a parallel between anorexia nervosa and thing in one of my videos. Yeah.
I just want to know, say if a girl comes or a boy comes and says, I am a girl, is it not okay to say, okay, you can be like a girl? Is it not okay to say, okay, you be like, or you want to sit like a girl or behave like a girl, you can be? I mean, is that wrong to say
Not, I don't know, but you
trying
can.
to fix, I mean, what is there if a boy behaves like a girl?
Because-
women always behave like men. Is that in the sense you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be a soldier, which is always thought to be a man's job. And
Very true, yeah.
what is wrong with that? I'm just thinking. I mean,
There is a difference between whether he's telling I'm a girl or he's telling I like to do the things that girls do.
that's
There's a difference. And that's where I think the
but you can
thing comes.
you can talk like that, isn't it? As a maybe if
Yeah, there are boys who, I mean, we typically nurturing is something that women are better at or more, you think, but there are men who are very nurturing as well. And there can be women who don't have it. Yeah, but what percentage? So when I go, say for example, I go to an anatomy class and I'm teaching anatomy and I'm teaching the human anatomy of the hands, am I supposed to say that there are human hands have 10 fingers? Or am I, because there are people who don't have one finger, there are people who can have extra fingers, so am I supposed to say humans can have any number of fingers from 0 to 20 or 25? Is that how I should be teaching? That's the difference. You're saying you're being empathetic and inclusive, but you're actually misguiding, you're misrepresenting. Because what is 99.9% is what we hold as a thing. And then we bring this under conditions that are rare, or there's an anomaly, or there is something else to it. And we need to recognize that, not normalize it. We are not doing anyone a favor when we normalize it because we are not addressing the actual issue there. Because what they found is, after what I was telling you about the social contagion, I think we got interrupted there a bit. So there's this, yes, Tia, illala, after 10 minutes, I'll tell you when.
I think when Auntie asked about the fixing, I think when we say we fix the problem, it was more like we prevented the child from undergoing surgery that would irreversibly affect.
No, I didn't mean that. What is there if you behave like a girl? I mean, is that the thing is that's considered a taboo for boys to behave like girls, whereas a girl behaving like a boy seems to be.
Yeah, that is a issue.
That's my problem. It's like it's okay if a girl, if the boy would like to cook or play with dolls. I mean, just instead of you are a boy, but it's okay. You can be like a girl. I mean, what is there? And that's what
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. But what I'm saying is,
is that a way to deal with it? That's what I'm asking.
See, it's very innate. Like there, I'm thinking of one particular child when I'm talking about this, and this is a child I've seen all along, right from kindergarten, and and the child is very effeminate. And there was a time that I was very, very concerned, because I was also confused at that point. Typically wants to do, but it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
With the child.
Yeah. And that is the one child that I think definitely would probably later on at 18 or 21 would maybe identify as maybe, or could be, homosexual. I don't know, but that's my feeling. But yeah, like you said, but there's a big difference, and I think all this, if we go through the protocol of what we would go through for all other conditions, then we do justice to that child. When we skip all that and say congratulations, we've missed something. And what happened was, when they found that this was a social contagion, so this doctor, I think it was Lisa Littman, I think, yeah, I'm not sure, Lisa Littman. I'll give you all the details. I'll send in the group some studies and some, references to the things I'm talking about today. But what they found was, this lady, she went and did a retrospective study, spoke to a lot of thousands of families of parents whose children had transitioned and what they went through. And then came up, from all the data she collected, came up with this thing called rapid onset gender dysphoria. That is ROGD. Which again was taken off. She was not allowed to publish it. She went through a lot. She was asked to manipulate the results. She was asked to, and there's so much like this in sex research by neuroscientists and sexologists that has not been published and has been taken off because they fear that if you publish this, then then people are going to act against them. That if you tell that brains are different, if you tell that they're inherently different, then it's going to somehow, that's the fear mongering that's going around. But actually it doesn't do us any good because we need to have the data and then use it. You have the findings, how are you going to use these findings or what are you going to do with these findings is what we need to worry about. Not to say that you censor it and ban it and not let the findings out. That's not doing anybody any good. So, yeah. Now I'll come back to somebody who was, yeah.
So, the gender identity that one has, that one thinks one has, could be socially influenced, I think you've spoken about, or biologically determined?
Biologically.
Now, with respect to biological determinism, there are medical history tells us that biological determinism has been debunked. I mean, in the beginning of the 20th century, there were Harvard neuroscientists or professors who were comparing cranial dimensions and mapping that or correlating that with intelligence, right? And now the size of the skull, we know that the size of the skull has nothing to do with the intelligence that you have. So now the fact that we do not understand the brain fully yet, could that? So how do we claim with absolute certainty? That's one part. Secondly, you spoke about the example of Chloe, right? So if it is biologically determined, like after let's say there's a person who's born as a girl, and suddenly she identifies as male, and then she's put on puberty suppressants or even testosterone shots or whatever. So if it is biologically determined, why isn't the fact that she's undergone all of this to essentially alter her biology? Why is that not changing her gender identity? So after a couple of if I identify as if I'm born biologically female, and if I identify myself as psychologically male, and I get testosterone shots, so if there is biology in play, like will that help me feel less female? So or is it hardwired beyond a point?
It's hardwired beyond a point, which means that you go through all these things, it doesn't change. Because most of the masculinization or feminization of the brains happens in utero and in the early years when the brain is still developing. So that has already happened. And every cell in your body, of course, has your XX or your XY. So all these things would be a superficial fix, but it doesn't address the issue, and that has been proven by the fact that people who underwent reassignment, the suicidal rates, which is the biggest thing they use, that if you don't affirm, they'll commit suicide. You lose your child, which is why the parents give in, which is not true. It has not been proven that just by reassignment, you bring down the suicide rates. It's the exact same. The rate of suicide before, whether you transition or not, or you don't transition, remains the same, which means that wasn't the issue in the first place. So what happened is, this study that I was talking about, Lisa Littman, and what they found was that rapid onset gender dysphoria. The other correlations that she could make was, most of these girls who came out during adolescence, 11 to 13 or 14 years old, already had another psychological diagnosis, a mental disorder diagnosis, like stress or anxiety or social anxiety disorder or one of these things, they already had. And this came secondary to that. So there was already a problem with the child not being able to fit in, not, being bullied or, under peer pressure and all these things. There were other factors that were precipitating this. And then, like somebody said, this child goes online on social media and she's told, this is your problem and you need to, just, maybe you're a boy and, it happened to me and I'm fine and that fixed my problem, and then you just get sucked in and you're like, okay, let me try this. So this was one thing. Another interesting thing was girls on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum. Girls on the spectrum were also very highly vulnerable to coming out as trans. Again, one of the reasons could be that typically the children on spectrum are more attracted or more involved with things, right? Which again is usually the difference between boys and girls. So the confusion that I am not like all these other girls, I like these typical things, and then could it be? And generally they also will have some other precipitating conditions mentally. So all these things, when she did her research, pointed to the fact that this is very typical of a social contagion. And one of the case studies that I read was these two girls who came out as trans, and in their group, all the children, like 5 of them friends, they'd all come out within a matter of few months. Okay, so these girls, they went to their psychiatrist or therapist or whatever, and that person said, take them out of the school, take them out of this city for the summer, take them to their grandparents, take them far away from this group for some time, for 2 months. And these children went there. After 1 month of being away from this gang, they were dating boys. And at the end of the holiday, they didn't want to come back to that school because now they'll be ostracized. How dare you? They were scared because they would be bullied. And then they changed school and they went on to be, continue as girls. So there's enough evidence pointing to the fact that this particular issue is probably, is very much possible that it is social contagion, most of it. Again, I do not discount the fact that there is a tiny percentage of children who will actually benefit and who might. But that needs rigorous, the diagnostic procedure should be you should go through all of it before you just jump and decide and celebrate and come out and do all these things. That is what they're not allowing people to do their job. Because people like you and me, or who want to go by their conscience and who cannot do unethical, cannot stay in their jobs, because if they do that, they either lose their jobs or they get imprisoned. I'm not talking about here yet. But that's where the propaganda is getting.
Is there a system, Menaka? Is there a system in place?
Where? Here?
Like generally, like when you say, like when somebody comes to a medical practitioner saying, I could be trapped in this body. Is there a system in place for therapy, counseling? Is it all laid out?
So
how easy or difficult is that?
It's very different in different places. Now, recently, for the past 1.5 years, people have been pushing for it. But till then, it was like, just accept and affirm. Just go with it.
What the psychologists here? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How many psychologists in the room?
Yeah.
Clinical psychologists. I just want to know what is there.
No, but even then, I'm sure you go to your meetings and, because this is what I, out of my curiosity over the last years, I've attended a few just to see what's being told. And I know in Coimbatore, there are influencers and these parenting experts who say that you should take pride books and queer books to children. These books that talk about, yeah. And there are so many Indian public. I have a website. I'll send it to you. You'll be surprised.
To be honest, I was thinking for a long time that maybe we all have to be more pro trans and pro everything, because it's a community that was so shunned and taboo. People threw them on the streets, right? So somewhere we need to maybe we open out so much, and then so that they get a space is what I was thinking. But the day I started questioning this, a lot is when I'm sitting through one of these conferences where they're talking about gender, and there's this person, an activist, who's saying when a child is born, you cannot dress them up in a particular way. You cannot give them a particular name.
Gender neutral parenting.
You should give them a unisex name, and how to dress them up even when they're as young as 1.5, 2 years old. Go leave them in a mall where there's all kinds of dresses, and whatever they pick, you let them wear. And by the time they're like 13 or 14, let them decide. And I just heard that had a.
Oh, I didn't bring that book. Johnny the Walrus. Did any of you see that? This morning I put it out.
So, but then I did question one of the teenagers in my own community who is very pro gender affirmation, whatever. So I asked her, like, what do you think about this? She said, that's the worst thing you can do to a child. It is like forcing them to conform to something. I think they should be brought up as a girl or a boy, and then if they really fight that, and if they're really fighting it, and to give them the time and love and support they need, and if they really cannot get over that fight, then to be there for them as a community, and that is what I would stand for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she did argue that without any depression, nothing, there have been children who identified otherwise.
Yeah.
But she is for they, them, and all of this. She says, I don't want to even try to understand these things. That's what makes people comfortable, then I'll give it to them is what.
Yeah, so personally somebody comes and asks you.
Gender fluidity, what is the form these days?
Gender fluidity is what
There are lots coming up.
So at Pickup, like I mentioned, I have a 5-year-old. At Pickup, there are a bunch of moms who are waiting outside, and one of them worked on a campaign with the queer community, and the mother was telling the rest of us that it's so important that we talk to our children about how to be sensitive, and they're 5. And I don't know what to say because I don't want to come off as a homophobe or whatever the word might be for all the extensions now. But they're 5. Why do we need to talk about anything like this?
Yeah, exactly. Because again, like she said, that's the identity. There's an identity confusion, and if you're going to give them this whole spectrum of things to choose from, right? It's like a kid in a candy store.
When they are in 14, 13,
Yeah.
when they're adolescents, till then they will not have that confusion.
Yeah.
At the age of 13 to 14, they will start identifying, they'll ask themselves, who
Yeah.
am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
And when the society is exposing them into different genders, no, now
Like
they already
my daughter
choose.
told me, like you have all this, and they're like, only if you try all this, then you'll know what you are. What nonsense! I'm like, that's what she told me. Ma, what is this? Oh, so all this is there. Unless and until you've like tried all this, you won't know who we are. I'm like, and yeah, but that was because we've had that conversation at home that she had that outlook. But another child would look at this person as the expert, right?
But Menaka, so I was trained by a particular NGO that works in sex education, right? So this NGO was built by 2 gynecologists, and it has a lot of therapists and psychiatrists and doctors, like, who run hospitals.
Yeah.
And so when I studied under them, we had a certain manual as to what you have to talk to children. It was very reasonable. Suddenly there was this updated manual, and they asked us to come back for training. Because the certification itself says that in 2 years is invalid. You have to upgrade, you have to, come back and retrain and all of that. So in that, they insisted that in a grade 1 classroom, I have to, talk about, if you ever feel like being a boy or a girl or, whoever you are, it's all right. And in certain terms, we have to bring that even in the grade 1 classroom. So that day I decided I will not work with the NGO. I mean, under their banner, I stopped working.
I remember us having that conversation then. Yeah.
So now I'm a journalism major. I'm an art student, and I did whatever research I could, and I'm a good teacher. So I'm taking this subject to children, right? But I'm questioning myself so much because all these doctors who run hospitals and who have great degrees are subscribing to it.
John Money was a doctor too. I mean, there are a lot of, and that's
shouldn't I be a little more open to that perspective as well?
At this moment, what I am thinking is, like, after getting all the inputs from here, I feel like we should really go and spread awareness in the adolescents, telling them exactly what they are going through.
Yeah.
We have to psychoeducate them, and they have.
And also this thing of boys and girls are the same. Actually, our hormones are completely different. How we respond to a physical relationship or a romantic relationship is different. And if girls want to behave like boys, that's why I asked that question in my survey. It's not the same.
But how certain are we on this? So imagine the whole LGBTQ issue did not exist. Okay, so so is the causal chain between the chromosomes I have and the games I like? Is that clear? Why is it? I mean,
it is.
The fundamental question is yes. Why is it that our even social behavior is shaped by our biology?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So there's enough studies, okay? Like for example, monkeys are not socialized, they're not, social construction is not there, right? But monkeys, They've not been told that you're a boy, so you should be like this, right? So there was a study done on monkeys where, they were allowed to be in a thing with different kinds of toys, dolls, babies, and wheeled things and trucks. And all the male monkeys were playing with the wheeled things and the trucks, and all the female monkeys were playing with the dolls. And they were literally holding. And when the dolls were given to the boys, the male, they ripped it apart and they were throwing it, and it was not handled like that by the females. So what socializing happened there, or what social construct was happening there, that you saw that difference?
Ma'am, you're expressing an observational generalization. So how does a male of a species behave versus in contrast how a female of the species behave? Fine. But what I'm trying to ask is, what explains that observation?
The hormonal, I was telling you about the testosterone exposure during the prenatal time, right? The testosterone, which from the 7 weeks of the fetal development, there is hormonal exposure. And again, the hormonal exposure is not the same for all male babies. And depending upon how much testosterone that male baby is exposed to, you can actually predict how masculine or how boyish that child is going to be. And this was a study done by a neonatologist, I think in Australia. I will send you that study. Extensive. From 2 days of age. Yeah.
So we have this study in psychology this year in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And the aim of this study was to see whether preferences in toys and monkeys are backed by social factors. And it was actually found that while the male monkeys chose to play with wheel toys, which was basically, cars and preferably, what toys boys play with, but when it came to the female monkeys, there was no actual difference. They played with both the wheel toys and the plush toys. So that way there was no difference.
There is still a difference, right? The male played more with that.
Correct, but the female showed no...
okay, I have to see this, because the study that I read was, again, I doubt that there would have been some manipulation to fit into, I don't know. Let's go into it, because when I presented this in Chennai, there was a PhD scholar on gender studies. And there were a lot of people who've been doing gender studies. And the end of it, what they told me was, we didn't even know about any of this. We were never presented this literature. We didn't know of these schools of thought at all. You please try Googling. You will not find any of the stuff I told you now. Go now and Google. You will not find any of the stuff I told you now. Go to ChatGPT and ask. ChatGPT will be politically correct. Because I've done it. And I've taken screenshots and kept. Even ChatGPT is not committing to anything. It could be like this, it could be like that. Very, very politically correct. Because again, it's humans that's feeding what is going there, right?
I think last week Google Gemini got into a big problem with this kind of answering, politically correct answering,
Yeah.
Or ideologically based answering. And Google, I think, had to call up Elon Musk and talk and tell them that the algorithms are like this and you don't do this and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so actually what you find is very skewed. You will not, unless and until you know where to look and you know which author and which study, you will not find it. So, which is why I'm doing this here. Because I know all of you are,
The counselor there, she
Yeah.
said this should be addressed after 14 or 15 years of age. But as a school, I want to know, should we go and talk to them about identity, or when it comes up, then you are, address it?
I think children are exposed to it already. So giving them a very objective...
I'm from Tirupur. That's what. Should
Yeah.
I rake it up in the school, or just wait for any...
We can have, see what I did was, I had just a critical thinking class, but I brought critical thinking class with, and I brought in a lot of topics, and one of it was this. So it was a debate. I wasn't saying anything, but we saw what was coming, and then we kind of, there was a lot of, yeah.
What about like trans people who say, oh, but I've felt this since the age of like 4 and 5, and like I've come across these, autobiographies where they'll say.
So they are probably the ones who actually needed that to transition. Yeah.
So we see this a lot. Like, are there any different animal species where they experience such things where males are attracted to males and females are attracted to females.
So she's talking about any animal species. We were talking about it where there is.
That's
Huh?
a percentage of.
Yeah.
But you are saying about causal chain linking chromosomes with.
Yes.
It's not causal chain. Causal chain is the wrong vocabulary. It is correlational induction or correlational inference. It's not causal chain. Causal chain means it is cause and effect. It is not cause and effect. It's correlation.
Yeah.
Because it is epistemologically there are so many explanatory variables in between. So when the moment you have so many explanatory variables, you don't go for causal chain. You go for correlation.
Exactly. And correlation has, but we are trying to establish cause here, right? Why does that happen?
That's wrong. You can't.
You can't.
You should try and establish cause. You should go by correlation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, why is it that male monkeys are attracted to the drug? The drug doesn't have a gender.
So
Evolution. Not attracted. It's a preference.
Yes.
What they want to play with.
And
Just
what makes them? What
the
what makes
biology.
The evolution.
We evolve. That's evolution. We have to go back in evolutionary biology.
Male monkeys attracted to a female monkey.
Sexual dimorphism.
Right? But I don't understand why male monkeys are attracted. Have a preference for drugs and typically.
This is like a philosophical question that you're asking. Like actually, I feel like right. It is psychological. Yeah.
It's basically psychological sexual dimorphism.
Yeah. So you have to go back into.
Because normally dimorphism is used for physical attributes. Even for psychology also, I think they use the.
It is a part of the different typical characteristics that we attribute to a particular sex. Okay. So, for example, if I were to tell you that a typical woman, what would be the typical characteristics that, or female of any species, that you see across in most people? What would, most species, what is it? Most species. Nurturing. Right? Yeah, nurturing. And for the male species?
Providing.
So our gender roles actually are not really a social construct fully. Gender roles are evolutionarily established actually because for the best of that species, which is the next generation. Now today when we make an argument that you have to do 50, I'll do one diaper change, you do one diaper change, actually who's suffering is the child. Yeah. That's what is happening today. I'll do this, you do this, you do this, I do this. Actually the child needs, in most cases again, the mother during the first few years. And if you're not giving the child that, you're doing a disservice to your child. That's it. It's as simple as that. Sorry?
She might disagree.
Yeah, she'll disagree. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that, and of course we know we have...
That's such a beautiful, wonderful thing you just said. Now, if I go back to a young couple and say this, would there be any research to back that? Because I would want to go to a young couple and say that.
Yeah, so
what is
I was...
happening in most of the
So I have to tell this study, right? I'm sure you guys know about it. So there was this huge study, done where they were trying to establish correlation between how progressive a country is or how equality, there is, gender equality in the country is to the profession or the subjects that the women choose to study. Okay, professions. So they went in, obviously assuming what? What would you expect? The more progressive you are, the more equal the society is where, it's all been flattened out. You would expect more women in the typical male-dominated fields, which is the STEM fields and stuff like that. And you would, right? They got the exact opposite results. That in the Scandinavian countries, which is the most progressive, more egalitarian, where everything is like evened out for everyone, they saw a more difference in the cultural as well as in the professional field, where the women were sticking on more and more to their typical gender-specific roles, and the men were sticking on more and more to their typical gender-specific roles, especially in the women. There were enough women who wanted to stay home, take care of the children, were nurses, were all in those typical roles. So what happened? They were expecting that now you neutralize everything, then women are going to come into this, because that's what we've been aiming at. And they saw the exact opposite in the developing countries, where the girls wanted to go there. But once you remove the stress, once you remove and you normalize and you let them be, they settle into these roles. So gender roles are very biological. And we are at our best in those roles. And why are those roles important? Because it's for the next generation, which is the children. And who suffers when we completely, mess with these roles? It's the children and us. Because we can never, I know, like we want to be career women, we want to be, and then we're doing this also, right? Sorry?
The burnout is on us.
Sorry?
And the burnout is on us.
Yeah, the burnout is, yeah.
Also in career counseling that we do, right? Gender plays a major role in deciding the career. For example, the aptitude, the personality, and the interest. And
Yeah.
gender also plays a role in the genetic brain profiling.
Yes.
There's a genetic brain profiling where we do the career counseling. In that, gender plays a major role where, as you said, right, the brain is wired in such a way.
Exactly.
The female brain is given the career, which is very feminine, typical feminine, they will be good at it. So it's like that.
You're basically actually happy or doing what you're naturally inclined to do, and very often in the name of progress we are trying to push ourselves into roles that we are not very happy from inside doing. Not for everyone. There is a small percentage who will be different, right? But we are talking about the larger number, the majority. So, yeah.
Were you asking how the monkeys could differentiate between toys? One which were, you're thinking, both are toys, so why did they pick one toy?
Yes.
Because
how did the gender influence toy selection? That's my question.
I think maybe I got your question. But the dolls, they look like a miniature of a baby. That's something.
The human babies, yeah.
Whereas the trucks and toys, they look like things that can be manipulated with like sticks. So that is how they were even identified.
And there was, and there's also enough research to show, even at 2 days old, they have done enough research on newborn babies. The amount of time they spend looking at the fan versus a human face. The female babies spend more time looking at a human face, whereas the male babies spend more time looking at the fan.
I can vouch for this completely.
This was and this man was like, works in a center which is like, I think they see like thousands and thousands, and then he has a setup where at a few months old, he lets the baby crawl into that room, and they have cameras, and there's all these toys kept. And you see these babies crawl, the girls crawling, most of them, towards the dolls and picking them up, and the boys crawling to the trucks and these wheel things. So there's absolutely no doubt that they are different.
They did the same thing with human babies, and they saw that
Human babies only I'm talking about.
Well, monkey babies didn't show preference, the human babies did.
The female.
Okay. Maybe the statistical number was lesser. But I'll send you the study. Yeah, because this was quite a...
She was saying the monkey females didn't show a separate,
but humans showed.
Because the whole point of the study was to see the effect of socialization.
But I'm talking about 2-month-old baby.
No, this is with relation to monkeys.
And also, he was in a position, because he was a neonatologist, in a position to think from prenatal. So he had data about the prenatal exposure to testosterone as well. How much? And then he could correlate it post, after the delivery to how much masculine and how much more male traits that baby had. So
I think a lot of the grey area also comes, when you're trying to be right. Why we jumped, like I speak for myself, on the non-binary bandwagon initially is to do justice by the trans people, wherein you don't want to address them as anomaly. Right? So, where do we stand? But where do people like you stand? Wherein, what is the harm in having a third gender? Why?
It is not about having a third gender. So why is it that the same progressives...
So much disservice done to the community, you want to make right?
Yeah.
Right. So how do we address that? And also, when we speak of so many evolutionary changes, when we speak of rigid gender roles, then where does the evolution come?
So that's what, to acknowledge that this difference is there, but to also say now, just because this is there, it doesn't mean that behavior is justified. So I'm a boy, that's why I hit everyone. That's not justified. That's why we're humans. Because we can bring in that change. But it doesn't do any service to say that, it doesn't exist at all.
I know now. I think why we're questioning is that has been pushed far too much.
And the transgender thing, like you're saying, when you're saying that it is considered an anomaly, if you say that, or if it is a mental disorder, again the same progressives are only telling that there is no taboo about mental disorder and we should accept it and we should talk about it and you should say that yes, I have this and I can get over it and all that. But why is it that when it comes to transgenderism, you don't want this mental disorder to be spoken out at all? You're saying you're normal.
But are you saying transgender is a mental disorder thing?
It's a gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about intersex. Intersex is a completely different thing.
Yeah, that's a word. So transgender and where you have the biologically where they have both the genders.
XXY, XYY. Yeah, those are the chromosomal disorders. Like, yeah.
What do we call them?
I listened to her discourse as well, and I really expected a lot more from her, but I was very disappointed.
No, but what do you call that? It's not. She's not a transgender.
Yeah, she is. So the thing is that they are typically, I don't know her anatomy or anything, but probably an intersex. Whom you see typically they have physical differences, they have the webbing of the neck, they have the broad shoulders, they have usually some heart disorders, they have mental retardation. There are so many things associated with this. Then you have the ambiguous genitalia, where the baby is born with genitalia that is neither here nor there or both. Right? If there is a lot of masculinization prenatally of a female baby, like there is too much of testosterone exposure to the baby, then the child can have a longer clitoris or a scrotal kind of labia, which is the ambiguous genitalia. Right?
So
now,
what do you refer to them as?
usually intersex, there are different terminologies.
Because that's what I
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so that's where the confusion comes. Which is why I'm saying that, now these people this is a community that needs medical help and medical care. You want to say something? So, but sometimes because of this hangama that this group is creating, now they also suffer because now we are looking at everyone like that.
So they are not called transgenders. Then you don't call them.
They're called intersex only, yeah.
Because I always refer to them as
What we traditionally call Ali and Ali in Solo only, yeah. Eunuch. Eunuch. Now we are not supposed to use those terms. Medical books have been asked to remove medical terminologies.
The government has refers to them as the third gender, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
Because there's a reservation for them.
Socially, it is transgender, right?
Most of them want to transition or want to socialize and be or socially transition or surgically transition to one or the other. And that will be their because most of them are infertile. Most of them, 99% intersex. And there are different syndromes that come under it. Turner's and Klinefelter's and all those.
How do you explain intersex to? I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and you see a lot of them.
You see a lot of them.
See a lot of them at traffic lights these
They
days.
may not be intersex, they might be trans.
Yeah, but
No, most of them are intersex. Most of them are intersex.
how do I explain that to my 8-year-old? Because
How did your mother explain to you?
Man, I was never. It was never. It was never.
So it becomes a no.
Yeah, so we just say that they are a little different from us.
And that's it. I always
That's all I
understood
said,
them
because
as
I feel like I'm not qualified
above
to
the
say
waist
that.
that they were female and below the waist they were.
And it's not as simple as that.
Yeah, men gender.
It's not as
That's how I
simple.
understood.
That's not.
That's actually where the spectrum is. It's in that community where the spectrum.
Yeah.
If you want to put it, the clear biological sex is probably clear. I mean, the binary is clear, but it's in the intersex where the entire spectrum of mixing is there, and there's no one particular form or way there.
Yeah, but you do a chromosomal analysis and you'll know what is the gender profile. Like, what is the chromosomal profile of that baby. But again,
Aren't their numbers very small?
extremely small.
Extremely small.
But it's been projected today as.
I the voter list this time, which was got released like 2 weeks back. Coimbatore, I think, has got around 700 or 800 at best.
let's even take it for a fact that it's not all been registered and make it 5x. 5x of the number that has been registered in the voting list, or maybe even 10x. We're talking about 7,000 people out of a city of around 30 lakh people. If you look at the districts, I mean, not metropolitan area. So that's a very, very minuscule number that we're talking about, for which we are doing all of this rewiring on. So basically, it's like 30 lakh is getting adopted to 7,000. Whereas it is to be, the space has to be given for that 7,000 to exist peacefully and harmoniously in these places, rather than everybody twisting the other way around and trying to make space.
But I think because also the space and respect has not been given, which is why a lot of us feel responsible.
So it's misplaced. Misplaced very much.
Which restroom should you go to?
Yeah.
Basic questions.
Yeah.
So if you are trans or intersex, what do they do?
Yeah.
Where do they go actually? Where do they go?
That is where we are lacking.
Yeah, that is where we are not. We don't have the infrastructure, and
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the question comes now. Like, I wanted to say this. So yes, there are a lot of assumed, social contagion. All of this exists. We spoke about it, but in really people who are trans, and what the community is going through, and where should we all, how we should accommodate them into. One is to accept that it is a mental health issue, and that we should treat it like one and help them. And so see, I know people who are schizophrenic who are working and living a normal family life, right? So in that sense, even that's why we're saying remove the taboo. So my question is, when you say give them a separate, we say give them a separate washroom where they can use, or have separate cubicle based washroom where there's no common area, so there's no female or male spaces, but even we don't want to change or use the washroom in front of another female sometimes, so we use certain, that's the argument that's placed, that I think for the washroom question, they should just have a separate, we should have a separate cubicle kind of a setup and not have common spaces outside of the cubicle, which is considered a male or a female space. But all that aside, when the biggest question is that when I'm a trans, why should I use a trans bathroom as opposed to I'm saying I'm a female and I'm feeling so much like a female and I want to be a woman? Why are you not letting me feel like one? Why are you telling I'm different from that?
Because you are.
The want of becoming a woman.
I agree with that, but that's
you can look at a person and tell, and it's very important, right? So like if I look at someone here, I assume obviously because 99% comes under. So for that 1%, of course, there is a difference, and therefore, like he was saying, should the 30 lakh people now be made to feel uncomfortable because you want to accommodate that 2%, or should you give them the 2%, whatever, an option? I definitely will not be okay to be in a locker room or my daughter to be with a trans woman there,
also,
right? And I rightfully so,
If it is not taboo, why would you have a problem if you are a trans? What is the problem in using a trans bathroom?
Yeah, but they are saying that I am a woman, like I'm a trans, my body might be different from your body, but in every other sense, I'm a woman.
Identity is not subject. It's not, Identity, what you are, then I can say, like my friend says, my friend, he put his pronouns as, so he went to this college in the US and he's got science students. And most of them have different pronouns and then different identifications. And he said, see, I cannot remember all this. I'm just going to call you all by your names and whatever. And then he was called like 4-5 times to the principal's thing and told that you're offended this person, you've offended that person. So much so that he corrected a paper, he was giving the thing, and he called the name of that student and gave, and that guy started crying. Because in that 1 week time, he had become, and how is he supposed to know? And then he says, and then so what he did was in his meeting online, he put his pronouns as HHH, His Holy Highness. Now what do you do? I mean, so, you can go the whole way, but then we do live in a society, we do live in a thing, and you can't just say, I feel like this. What do others think you are is very important also, right? That's your identity.
Right, and also, why do you want to gatekeep the term woman, and what does it even mean? And somebody else saying, I do feel like a woman.
Yeah.
So my only argument to that was, even for those poor people or LGBTQ activists, when they talk about the difference in community, they need a different word. So they say we are all women, but they still say I am a trans woman and a cis-het woman, right? So without that, I mean, in the end of the day, there is always a.
So we changed the term for women. We called womb carriers.
Yeah. No. The other word, what is that? Menstruating people. Menstruating people. And there are so many such terminologies, yeah.
The problem is not just trans women wanting to use women for bathroom. Men who identify as women even without having undergone the transition.
Yeah, they just identify, gender fluidity. So morning I'll go to women's bathroom, evening I'll go to men's bathroom. Because morning I felt like a man, woman, and now. That's what gender fluidity is all about.
But is there
And we know about, exactly. Not wanting, he raped 3 women in the women's prison. He impregnated 3 women.
So here, again, people are placing the question that you're having a problem that some men are impersonating as trans to take advantage of the position. But when actual trans men are concerned, why shouldn't they have a place in a women's prison?
What is actual trans men?
Really, somebody who's gone through, who's actually trans, like not person who's impersonating. Intersex or trans person who's.
Yeah, where do they go? Which prison do they go?
I think, exactly.
No, I don't think we have.
See, most of the time we're not going to go and check, right? We go by how they look. It's a very practical problem. You cannot go and check. You have to just go by what they're telling you. And